50 hours on the engine. Factory tape still on the cowl. Sold last week for pennies on the dollar. Right now, across America, storage lots are filling up with outboards that look brand new. Seized by banks, surrendered by owners who couldn't keep up with payments they never should have signed for. We're not talking about old, worn-out equipment here. We're talking about $70,000 engines going for a fraction of their value at auction. And nobody is talking about it. How did this happen? Who's losing everything? And what does this mean for anyone thinking about buying a boat in 2020? Before we dive in, if you've ever wondered whether the boating dream is still worth chasing, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear the truth before they sign on the dotted line. Now here's my question for you. Have you seen prices crashing at your local marina? Drop a comment below. I want to know what's happening in your area, because what I'm about to show you is going to change the way you think about outboards, dealers, and the hidden crisis nobody saw coming. To understand how we got here, we need to go back. Back to a time when the marine industry was riding a wave unlike anything it had seen in decades. The year was 2020. The world had shut down. Offices closed, travel stopped, and millions of Americans found themselves trapped inside, desperate for something, anything, that felt like freedom. They found it on the water. Boat sales exploded. Dealerships that had struggled for years suddenly couldn't keep up with demand. Wait lists stretched for months. Customers were paying above sticker price just to get their hands on a hull. The industry saw an 11% surge in sales, flooding the market with first-time buyers who had never owned a boat before. And at the heart of this boom stood the outboard motor. Specifically, the high-horsepower, technologically advanced engines that manufacturers had spent years perfecting. In 2021, Mercury Marine unveiled the V12 Verado, a 600-horsepower masterpiece that represented everything the industry had been building toward. Smooth, quiet, digitally integrated, a marvel of engineering wrapped in a sleek white cowl. The price tag on a single Mercury 400 Verado could reach $70,000 or more. Triple that for a boat rigged with multiple engines. But here's the thing about dreams. They're easier to sell when money is cheap. Interest rates sat near zero. Banks loosened their lending standards. Suddenly, a $150,000 center console didn't seem so far out of reach. Dealers pitched boats as lifestyle investments, mental health tools, family bonding experiences, a way to escape the chaos of a world gone mad. And people believed it. They signed the papers, they made the payments, they posted pictures on social media of sunsets and calm waters and smiling children. For a moment, it all made sense. But beneath the surface, something was already shifting. The same forces that had made this boom possible were about to turn against it. And the buyers who had stretched themselves thin to chase the dream were about to learn a hard lesson about what happens when the tide goes out. By 2023, the cracks were starting to show. The Federal Reserve, fighting inflation that had spiraled out of control, began raising interest rates at the fastest pace in decades. Money that had been nearly free suddenly carried a heavy cost, and for buyers who had financed their boats with variable rates or adjustable terms, the monthly payments started climbing. A loan that felt manageable at 3% looked very different at 7%. At the same time, consumer confidence began to collapse. The Conference Board's index, which measures how optimistic Americans feel about the economy, started falling month after month. By late 2024, it had dropped below the threshold that typically signals a recession is coming. People weren't just worried, they were scared. And scared people don't buy boats. Global boat sales dropped more than 9% compared to the previous year. The pandemic buyers, many of whom had never owned a boat before, started doing the math. Between slip fees, insurance, maintenance, and loan payments, that dream of freedom was costing them thousands of dollars a month. Some tried to sell, but the market was flooded with inventory and prices were falling fast. The The dealers felt it first. Companies like Brunswick, which owns Mercury Marine along with brands like Boston Whaler and Sea Ray, reported an 18% drop in boat sales. Their outboard division saw a 23% decline. Showrooms that had been empty during the boom were now packed with unsold inventory, each unit bleeding money in floor plan interest. And then came the defaults. The National Marine Lenders Association began reporting that delinquencies were ticking upward. Lenders across the industry were saying the same thing. Repossessions were way up. But this wasn't like previous downturns, when repo lots filled with tired, neglected boats that had been ridden hard for years. This time, the boats coming in were different. Late-model hulls, low-hour engines, vessels that looked like they had barely been used, because many of them hadn't. The people surrendering them simply couldn't afford to keep them anymore. Drive through certain parts of Florida today, and you'll see something that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Rows of outboard motors, wrapped in protective covers, sitting in storage lots that stretch for acres. Each one represents a broken promise, a payment that couldn't be made, a dream that died on a spreadsheet. Companies like Marine Asset Recovery and Cranky Ape have built entire businesses around this collapse. They specialize in remarketing bank repossessions, hauling in seized boats from marinas across the country, and flipping them at auction for whatever the market will bear. And right now, the market isn't bearing much. Engines with fewer than 100 hours are selling for 40 to 60% below what their owners paid. Some liquidators have started turning down work entirely, not because they don't want the business, but because they've run out of room. Their lots are full, and certain boats are so underwater that the bank won't see any return at all, even after the sale. The human stories behind these numbers are brutal. Repo agents describe showing up at marinas where owners have stripped their boats of anything valuable, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Electronics ripped out, fishing gear gone, sometimes even the propellers are missing. Other times, the owner has simply vanished, leaving the boat to rot at a dock while slip fees pile up. The psychology is simple, but devastating. Boats depreciate fast, often faster than owners can pay down their loans. Within a few years, many buyers find themselves upside down, owing more than the boat is worth. At that point, the math becomes cruel. Keep paying for something you can't afford, or walk away and let the bank deal with it. More and more people are choosing to walk away, and the dealers who loaded up on inventory during the boom are suffering too. Mercury Marine announced 300 layoffs in 2024, citing a drop in demand. Brunswick reported nearly 37 weeks of unsold boats sitting in their dealer pipeline, each one accruing costs that eat into already thin margins. The collapse isn't coming. It's already here. So how did we get here? How did an industry that seemed unstoppable just a few years ago find itself drowning in unsold inventory and repossessed engines? The answer isn't complicated. It's just uncomfortable. The marine industry didn't fail because the boats were bad. The engineering has never been better. These are remarkable machines, built with precision and care by companies that have spent decades perfecting their craft. The problem wasn't the product. The problem was the math. When interest rates sat near zero, banks were eager to lend. Loan terms stretched to 15, even 20 years on assets that depreciate faster than almost anything else a consumer can buy. A boat loses value the moment it hits the water, but the payments stay the same. Within a few years, millions of buyers found themselves trapped, owing far more than their boats were worth. Then rates spiked. A monthly payment that felt reasonable at 3% ballooned by hundreds of dollars at 7 or 8%. Buyers who qualified easily in 2021 couldn't afford the same boat in 2023, and the demographics tell an even darker story. By the end of 2024, the median age of boat owners in America had climbed to 60 years old. There are now more boat owners in their 70s than in their 40s. The industry didn't attract a new generation during the boom. It simply extended more credit to the same aging customer base. Now add tariffs to the mix. In 2025, the reintroduction of 25% duties on steel and aluminum threatens to push material costs even higher. Manufacturers are caught between raising prices on consumers who are already stretched thin and absorbing losses that their balance sheets can't sustain. The experts say this isn't an engineering failure, it's an economic reckoning. When money was cheap, everyone wanted a piece of the water. When money got expensive, the water started taking pieces back. The boats sitting in those repo lots aren't broken. They never were. What broke was the system that put them there. So where does the industry go from here? And what does this mean for anyone watching who still dreams of owning a boat? The truth is, there's opportunity hiding inside this collapse. For buyers with cash and patience, the repo market offers genuine value. Engines with barely any hours, hulls in pristine condition, prices that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. But experts warn that this path comes with risks. A repossessed boat can be the smartest purchase of your life or the fastest way to drain your wallet. The difference lies in doing your homework, getting proper surveys, verifying clean titles, understanding exactly what you're buying and why it ended up in a storage lot. The industry itself is adapting, though not in ways the traditional buyer might expect. The theme for 2025 is accessibility. Boat clubs and sharing platforms are expanding rapidly. Brunswick's Freedom Boat Club now operates over 400 locations with more than 100,000 members. These models offer the experience of boating without the burden of ownership. For a younger generation priced out of the traditional market, it might be the only path to the water. The National Marine Manufacturers Association remains cautiously optimistic, projecting that sales will stabilize and eventually return to growth. New technologies, changing consumer preferences, and pent-up demand could lift the market back up. But the debt overhang remains. The repo lots won't empty overnight, and the aging customer base presents a challenge that no amount of innovation can solve quickly. In the end, an outboard motor is just metal and wire. It doesn't care who owns it. But the promise it carries, freedom, family, escape, that's what people financed. And when they couldn't keep up, they lost more than an engine. They lost the dream that engine was supposed to deliver. The boats are fine. They always were. It was the math that failed. And the question now isn't whether you can afford a boat. It's whether you can afford to be wrong.